So let's starting this way.
Brother.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So I had posted one message to you about one doubt, right? We'll take it in the end or we'll take
Yeah,
maybe.
we'll take that in the end. No problem. I
Fine.
saw that. I told you can just ask here, no? So we'll take it in
Correct.
the end. Okay.
Fine. Yeah.
So go ahead, sister. Go ahead.
I also have one question in this prayer chapter.
We will take it in the end, sister. We shall go through it. We'll come to the prayer chapter anyway. So we'll take it in the end. Not to worry. Okay. So we
Okay,
hope
in
to
the last.
cover this. Yeah.
Today in the last or when you come to that prayer chapter?
That we shall see. Either we can take it in the end when we come to the prayer chapter because that will be more relevant. Or we
Okay.
can take it in the end if we have the time and if we feel that it's relevant to what we have covered today. Okay?
Okay. Then I will. Okay. Then I will connect that.
No problem.
Thank
That's
you.
sister. Thank you, sister. Okay, let's start with the seeker's journey. So the introduction and the preface, I would want you to kind of just go through yourself. We'll start with the seeker's journey. Entering Taji's apartments in Chennai, India, I found him relaxing on an indoor swing. As I walked towards him, a warm smile appeared on his face. "What's up, brother?" he said, extending his hand to shake mine. I sat across from him. A relative appeared from the next room and offered me tea. Daji intervened. "Give him coffee," he said. "He'll enjoy it more." It was the truth. The first thing people often notice about Daji is his poise. It's a rare quality which seems to touch anyone in his presence. His words are well placed and deliberate. Generally, he only says what is necessary to convey the bare essence. It then becomes incumbent upon the listener to further explore and expand the ideas. Periods of silence often punctuate his speech. In such moments, a person can understand many things, things that are even more important than his teachings. In this situation, a questioner tends to become inwardly content and forget all their questions. So these are some of the things that generally happens as we move ahead in spirituality. As we go higher and higher, these are some of the qualities that we exhibit. So I would want to just focus on some of these. So one is the poise that as a quality we develop, and whatever we speak will be well placed and well deliberate, conveying the bare essence. There will be periods of silence, which often actually punctuate our talk. And then we actually get an ability to make people understand things a lot more by their own reflection than what we say. The conversation will be such that everyone who talks to the person will feel more content and settled, and they forget the questions. As Daji's interviewer, this was now my fear. However, I instead found a new dynamic emerging between us. Our conversation flowed unabated, and he answered every question enthusiastically and great depth. "So you are here with questions," said Daji. "Yes. I'll start with just one," he said. I said, "Why meditate?" "Why not?" he replied with a chuckle. "Well, each person's reason will be different. In life, our goals tend to correspond to our personal needs and tastes. For example, one person joins the gym in order to lose weight, another person wants to six-pack abs. Yet both visit the same gym. I have observed a pattern in many of my interactions with meditators around the globe. Initially, people tend to approach meditation with a wide spectrum of aims. For example, many people suffer from a stressful lifestyle. They want to find a way to relax. Sometimes someone else wants to reduce their blood pressure. Another person seeks mental clarity. Others want emotional balance, but when they start meditation, they soon begin to harvest the benefits that far extend these aims. Often people are surprised to report a profound sense of spiritual well being, a state reflected by a sense of inner joy and even bliss. It is as if a hungry person asks for a cup of coffee, small craft of food, but then someone surprises them with a banquet. So, in this particular paragraph, basically, Dachi has elaborated the commonest reasons why people meditate and what meditation has to offer. And I think that's very, very important. What he says here that many people report a profound sense of spiritual well-being, a state reflected by the presence of joy and even bliss. And I think that is the crux of this particular paragraph. So people come for a small scrap of food. Hungry person comes for a small scrap of food, but eventually they end up having a banquet. Now, not many people realize it. And that is one of the things. And other point that you need to kind of pick up from this particular paragraph is that we need to offer meditation to suit the need of the people at that particular hour in their life. So if for a college going student, education is very important. When meditation is offered as a way of enhancing their concentration and getting them to perform better in their life and exams, I think they probably will actually relate to that. An adolescent or a young adult might have issues with the relationship. So meditation is actually offered as a tool to enhance their ability to form meaningful relationship in life, I think that will make sense to them. So they will then use meditation much more appropriately in their life and they will feel attracted towards it. For a person who is going to the office who are bombarded with targets, if meditation is offered as a tool to manage their stress in the office, I think that probably will make them see how meditation fits into their life. In other words, one of the important skill that we need to pick up is that we have to offer meditation in alignment with the need of the person in the different phase of life that they are passing through. If this alignment is not made, then it's quite possible that the message of why meditation for a particular person will be missed out. So please keep this in mind. Okay. So in life, our goal tends to correspond to our personal needs and tastes. That sentence in that particular paragraph, the second sentence in that paragraph, please underline. So our job as trainers is to offer meditation as a tool to meet the taste and the need of a person in a particular stage of their life. What's more, these results are palpable and immediate. We can experience them after a single meditation. In that case, what would happen if you meditated a second and third time? Imagine the cumulative effects of numerous meditations. So there are 2 points here in this paragraph. The first one is the effects of the meditation is palpable and it is felt and it is immediate. Now, a lot of people feel that the meditation is something that's going to give results after a long period of practice. Not necessarily. This is one thing that we have to emphasize, that the benefits of the meditation start coming in from the first meditation session itself. Many of the people might feel it palpably, but the results are generally immediate if they are made to develop an eye to see the results that is unfolding in front of their eyes. Now, if we do not develop the ability to pass on this message that they can actually feel these results and they can actually look for these results from day one. Now, many people come for meditation and then go away without necessarily feeling able to relate to it. So the other job of the preceptor is to make the abhyasi feel palpably the result of the meditation and make them see the result from their own eyes. That is very important. And the next point is meditation gives you cumulative benefits. So the more you meditate, the benefits will actually gradually accumulate. But does meditation also address our original aims? I added. It addresses them without specifically targeting them, he said. Meditation simply normalizes your inner state, whatever it may be. So that's a very important point. Meditation normalizes your inner state. Now, we might ask a question, what is this normality? I think probably if you use the word, it normalizes your inner state. Many people will simply ask this question, what is normality? And that's something that we need to ponder. What is normal, so to say?
Balanced.
Normal state is that state where our existence is in alignment with the divine existence. That is a normal state. So when we are in existence and when our existence aligns with the divine existence, what happens? We don't feel any effect either at the level of the heart or the mind or the body. At all the three levels, we are at ease. We feel light and we are able to go through all the chores of life in an easy pattern without feeling any weight either on the body, mind, or the heart. That is a normal state. Now, normalcy is when our existence is in alignment with the divine existence. Now, if this alignment is not there, we feel difficulties or heaviness or restlessness either in the body or the mind or at the heart level. So just keep this in mind. A stressed person may meditate, but meditation relaxes you. A person with different disturbed emotions may meditate and say meditation calms your emotion. An angry and bitter person may meditate and say meditation opens your heart and makes you loving. So different people feel the different effects of the meditation depending on the state of the mind that they actually go into it. Hearing these various responses can confuse us. What does meditation actually do? We think to ourselves. So what does it do? I asked. So now he's coming to, initially he said normal. Now he's using the word naturalness. It creates naturalness, said Daji. As you proceed towards naturalness, that which is unnaturally new starts to disappear. Again, we're going back to the same definition that we gave. What is normalcy? Our existence aligned with the divine existence. So when we say naturalize, we all the unnatural things, which are, in other words, those aspects of our existence which is not in tune with nature tends to kind of fall away. There may be 1,000 varieties of unnaturalness, but there is only one naturalness. Attaining that, we resolve 1,000 complaints. So now from normalcy, we go towards naturalness. That is why our path is called as Sahaj Marg, the natural path. Again, he continues with the question, why meditate? The answer is complex because our goals changes as we progress. So now two things. Why we meditate initially is different for each one. And as each one progresses, the goal for which they meditate also change. So it's meditation is a dynamic thing. It's not a very static thing. So that's another thing that we need to keep in mind. It's almost like if you take the same example that Daji gave, he said initially a person who is hungry comes for a piece of food, scrap of food. But now, as and when you start offering that person different variety of dishes as part of a banquet, it is quite possible that each person might like one part of the food, one kind of food, and they might eat one kind of food more than the others. Quite possible. And different people might like, for example, if a banquet has around 30 to 40 foods, it's quite possible that each of the 40 people might like a different food and they might eat a different food more than other. In other words, all the 40 people who came with the same intention of getting a scrap of food might end up having a banquet in different combinations. And they might all eat in different speeds, with different levels of satisfaction, with different tastes, and with different capacities, different quantities and qualities. Now you can see they all started with the same intention, but actually as they proceeded through it, you have a very dynamic variety of what is happening. Now this is the beauty of the meditation. So two things you remember. The primary reason why we come into meditation is different and vast. The process that each one of us undergo also is going to be very dynamic because our goal keeps changing as we go deeper and deeper into meditation, as we get a better hang of meditation. Today's reason is different from tomorrow's, and that is as it should be. As we meditate, wisdom grows. We better understand what we are and what we should be, and meditation is a vehicle that takes us on this infinite journey. Please underline these two lines. As we meditate, wisdom grows. So our intellect actually becomes wisdom. In other words, our intellect is initially narrowly confined. But as we grow, our wisdom grows and the intellect gradually metamorphoses into wisdom, and our vision now broadens more and more. Now, the next line, that we better understand what we are and what we should be. So there are two things. What are we today and what we should be ideally. Now, both are these things people are not aware when they come into meditation. Meditation gives them the tool to better understand these two things, what we are now to what we ought to be ideally. And hence, take you along an infinite journey. If the infinite journey can we ever arrive, I asked, then the question is, where would you want to arrive? The moment you think, yes, I have made it, you stop growing. You stop moving. Evolution can never stop. We must always be willing to change. We must be ready to go to the next step, whatever it may be. Then, having reached that step, we must be prepared and flexible enough to go even further. So now he's talking about the journey is infinite. It's not a finite journey. It's an infinite journey. So we have to keep that in mind. But spiritual literature is replete with examples of figures who are supposedly perfect beings, I said. Now, on one hand, we say that the journey is infinite. On the other hand, we have the spiritual literature which talks about perfect beings. So, how can we reconcile, do you think? So, Daji says, do you think that they would describe themselves in such a way? No. So, the perfect being would never talk about themselves being perfect. It's the others who actually talk about them being perfect. In mathematics, there is something called a asymptote. It's a line that is approached by a curve which intersects the line at infinity. The curve moves infinitely closer to the line, but the two never meet. They get closer and closer. A highly advanced aspirant is just like that curve. She forever approaches the destination without arriving. At any given moment, she is both infinitely close and infinitely far from the goal. Yet she keeps moving. As long as the aspirant exists, the journey will be infinite. This is one of the things, if you remember what we read in the complete works, Babuji says, even when we come in close alignment with the center, a nominal difference is always maintained between man and divine, the human and the center. Now, this is exactly what now Daji is saying, that we never arrive at the goal because that nominal difference is need to be maintained, and that nominal difference is only removed at the time of Mahapralaya. So to that extent, you can say you never arrive at the goal. But you can also say that you're so close to the goal that you're almost the goal only. So that's why the goal is infinitely near yet infinitely far. Both are true at the same time. So this example of asymptote, please keep that in mind. I'm not sure many people from mathematics can remember it at your age, but you can just keep that. The example of asymptote. We are yet near, yet so far. It's almost like a cricket match where the match is lost by 1 run. So we are so near, yet so far. Other example is a best example for as per spiritual journey is there is no question of winning or losing in spirituality. So the best example is where the match ends up in a tie, a one-day match or a test match or even T20 ends up in a tie, where there is no question of either losing or winning. Now you have a mixture of both, and you can kind of seems to evolve beyond both losing and winning. So that you can say that's the nearest to the goal, where you have tied. In other words, you have tied yourself to the divine. So that's one of the easiest example to remember. What are we moving towards? I asked. From selfishness to selflessness, he said. From the reactive mind to responsive heart, and this entire paragraph is talking about what exactly happens as we move in meditation. So from reactive mind to the responsive heart, from imprisonment in the folds of the ego to the freedom from ego, from here and now to eternal, from timeless existence, from worshipping forms to formlessness, from contraction to expansion, from restlessness to peacefulness, from superficial to authentic, from insistence to acceptance, from imbalance to balance, from darkness to light, from heaviness to lightness, from grossness to subtlety, from the periphery to the core of the being or the source or the higher self. So when we say we are moving towards divinity, our existence is now aligning towards divinity. to divine existence, all these things are manifest. These are all the manifestations of ourselves aligning towards divine existence. At the core of it is we are moving from grossness to subtlety. Now, this is a very, very, what do you say, fundamental concept that Lalaji and Babaji has given. We move from grossness to subtlety, and every other thing that is now written in this paragraph is just an outcome of that movement from grossness to subtlety. That's all it is. Now, you see, the purpose of meditation is to transform us. Transformation is the purpose of religion too. It's also the purpose of self-help and psychiatry. Yet, whenever we try to change ourselves in any way, we tend to encounter tremendous forces of inertia that prevents us from achieving the goal. So, meditation is a tool that helps us to overcome the inertia. So, there are three ways now. If we have to transform, there is the religion, there is psychiatry, and there is also spirituality, meditation. Of course, there is a lot of help available. There is no lack of great teachings, especially in this modern age. At the click of a mouse, we can access the wealth of nearly any tradition. We can view the latest scientific research on so many subjects. It's an age of information. Yet information can only do so much to help us. Daji laughed. Yes, I'm reminded of an old couplet. Worms ate up thousands of books but did not receive a certificate of erudition. So we cannot become our authentic self if we eat a lot of books. In other words, if we eat a lot of knowledge from the books, something else is required. That is what a bookworm is. No matter how much knowledge they gain, it doesn't make them any wiser. Knowledge cannot change you. You see, for example, we all know patience is a virtue, but is knowledge enough to make us patient? Similarly, we all know the value of life. The great teachers of the world have all spoken about it. However, to know about love and to feel and express it are entirely different matters. So we have to move from knowledge to exhibiting that in our day-to-day interaction. What do we learn from this? If non-teachings alone were sufficient, we would all transformed by now. After all, many great personalities have come before us and left great teachings behind. Yet the world remains as it is. Great teachings are not enough. Knowledge is not enough. Please underline these three lines. Yet the world is as it is. Great teachings are not enough. Knowledge is not enough. Now, we all have this penchant to talk about many great teachings, but told by different people. Now, when we quote these teachings, it generally shows our knowledge, not necessarily our personality or our evolution in spirituality. So, please remember that. When we quote somebody, we are actually quoting their experiences. When we actually quote our own experience, we are talking about from the experience of our perspective, from the perspective of our experience. Now, when we have the experience, then whatever we actually quote anybody else will have certain degree of force in it. It reaches the heart of the person because of the fact that it's something that we ourselves have experienced or passed through. And that is what makes us our knowledge authentic. When the knowledge that we speak about is backed by our experience, it just penetrates to all the veils of ignorance and goes to the core of the heart of the person who is listening. This is the secret of effective communication. When we speak about certain things backed by experience, it kind of cuts through the muck, reaches the heart of the person in the innermost core. Now, why are we supposed to practice meditation? To gain experience. And that's very, very important. So, knowledge that we pick up from the book is only a bookish knowledge. But when it's backed by experience, that then becomes real knowledge. And that is what Babaji talks about as Gnana. Gnana is backed by real experience. Gnana is not quoting from the books. Then what are we supposed to do by reading these books? We are supposed to practice diligently and gain the experience of it so that this knowledge that we gain from the book is backed by experience and it becomes authentic knowledge. That is what we are supposed to do. Okay. So the reading book is nothing but a way of getting inspired to practice diligently to gain the experience so that we are now grounded in experiential knowledge rather than depending on just bookish knowledge not backed by experience. So knowledge is not enough without experience. You may believe in omnipresence of God, for instance, but do you feel the constant presence in your life? If not, how does this belief help you? So even belief is not enough. Knowledge is not enough. Belief is not enough. It may give you comfort, but being comforted by a belief is no substitute for experiencing the reality behind it. So we have to move beyond knowledge, beyond belief, to experience and being grounded in the experience. Just then, someone entered the room and called us for lunch. Come, let's eat. We sat at the table and found that the food wasn't ready. Apparently, there had been some miscommunication. Daji laughed and said, "See, this is what I was talking about. You can't satisfy a person's anger with the promise of food. Neither can you merely believe, can a mere belief satiate a craving heart." Lunch arrived after a while and we ate in silence. Then Siddharji spoke. Through meditation, we go within and come in contact with something higher. Please underline. Why are we meditating? We want to go inside. And what happens when we go inside? We come in contact with something higher, and the mind absorbs the quality of something higher. This is what exactly happens. So the condition manifests in the heart, but the mind absorbs that condition, and it's the mind which actually talks about the condition. So if you go back to the definition of what is gnana, Babaji talks about this aspect of, or what is a condition, Babaji talks about this aspect of the mind. Through meditation, we go within. So if you sit for meditation and if you're not going within, then you are not meditating. So please keep that in mind. Therefore, we can find it wherever we are because it's always within us. We need not make pilgrimages. We need not change our dress, our habits, or our names. We need not do anything except close our eyes and sit quietly in meditation. That is how we gain practical spiritual experience. Experience is what differentiates spirituality from religion. Now, this question comes difference between spirituality and religion. And the fundamental thing is experience differentiates spirituality from religion. Belief without experience is hollow. It is too abstract. In worldly life, most people understand this. For example, science classes have both lecture and lab component. In the lecture, you understand the principle. It is in the lab that you actually see them in action. You become practically familiar with them. Your second-hand knowledge gains the backing of the first-hand experience. So the bookish knowledge is second-hand knowledge, but that's backed by the practical experience in the lab. And the meditation is the laboratory where you experiment on yourself. In spiritual matters, people tend to, however, be more conservative. They are uncomfortable with first-hand knowledge and rely only on the teachings of others. However, a time comes when the heart demands personal experience. Knowledge cannot satisfy this demand. Belief cannot satisfy it. So they then embark upon spiritual search. People don't mistake this as a criticism of religious belief. Religion is a foundation, but what is a foundation anyway? We must build upon it. A religious teaching may be true, but it matters little unless you have realized the truth for yourself. You see, it is not enough for a teaching to be true. It must be true for you. So, for example, if you build a foundation and not a building, where are you going to actually go and, dwell in? After laying the foundation, if you build a building in it, then you have a place where you can dwell. And you can actually experience in that dwelling. Obviously, you have not seen anybody actually going and staying or dwelling in the foundation itself. You cannot do that. So it becomes imperative that if the religion is a foundation, we need to build the building, which is the building is the spirituality. And that gives us a place where we can actually dwell and experience and go through the life itself. We cannot pass through life just dwelling on foundation. So in other words, a person who goes through the entire life just dwelling on religion has not even built a mansion where the experience of living through what is built on the foundation can be had. So this is something to remember. Religion is a foundation. Spirituality is the building that you actually build on. And that is where you dwell and experience life as it is. Truth must be realized. So the truth might be there, but the truth should be true for you. So every individual heart should experience the truth. The beauty is Every individual heart experiences the same truth, but it expresses the truth in different ways. And that's another thing to remember. Every individual heart experiences the same truth. However, it is expressed differently. This is what the Upanishad shloka talks about. Ekam sat vipra bahudha vadanti. The truth is one, but it is experienced and it is communicated differently by different people. Vipra bahudha vadant means the learned one put it around or put it across in different ways. Truth must be realized practically, and meditation is the means. So, why are we all meditating? We want to experience the truth ourselves, not depend on the experience of somebody else. So, that becomes imperative that we need to develop the skill of self reflection. Without self reflection, there is no question of experiencing the truth to oneself. Other person's truth cannot be our truth. If two people start eating, if the other person feels satiated, it is not necessary that you also will feel satiated at the same time. You will probably feel satiated at a different time. You might feel full at a different time. So each person's experience will be different. Truth must be realized practically, and meditation is the means. When we lack practical experience, the various religions often appear to speak different languages. Then we see only Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims, Jews, etc. In an effort to bridge the gap, we may strive to learn from each religion. Yet that knowledge can make them seem even more different from one another. We observe how the Christian seek the kingdom of heaven, Buddhists strive for nirvana, Hindus pursue liberation and the state of Aham Brahmasmi, and Sufis strive for Fanaya Fana or Bakaya Baka, life of life and death of death. Surely they can't speak all the same truth, we think. If one is right, the other one, the rest must be wrong. Now we argue, we fight about God, and this God is true than the other God. We fight over we fight over which philosophy is the true philosophy. We debate the legitimacy of the founders. Some people get fed up and become atheists. They think that all the religion must be wrong. However, when you meditate and actually experience some of these states, you realize that they're all the same. You can no longer be exclusive. You can no longer claim that only your tradition is correct. Instead, you become inclusive and acceptance of all perspectives. What is there to fight about? So this is the question. Meditation would make us more inclusive. So please underline this important point. How do you know that you are progressing in spirituality? Are you becoming inclusive as you grow higher and higher in spiritual journey? In other words, you accept every perspective without actually fighting over it. Therefore, I always suggest that whatever your tradition may be, please stay with it, but meditate also. So we don't ask people to change their religion. We want them to stick to whatever they are doing, but meditate. Meditation will help you go deeper and discover its essence. Then you will find that all religions have the same essence. It is like the famous line from the Rig Veda, the reality is one, but the learned ones speak about this in many ways. That's what I said. Ekam sat vipra bahudha vadanti. Then Dadi made one of his characteristic U-turn. Yet, as compelling as meditative experience are, they don't always succeed in transforming us. So now the question comes. So we know knowledge is not enough, belief is not enough. Now Dadi is talking about experience. He said experience is more better than belief and knowledge. Now the third thing, after the fourth thing, is experience itself is sufficient to transform us? Not necessarily. Our experience may be profound, but they may be highly enjoyable, yet personal experience rarely transforms us translates into personal change. Does a state of rapture automatically make us kind? Does ecstasy make us loving? He shook his head. So now he's talking about experience per se is not enough. Now he's shedding light on the fourth point. What is necessary after experience? Then what's the point of experience? I asked. Well, when you want a donkey to move, you have to show it some green grass, he said, smiling. So it's just a matter of incentive, I said. If we did not have phenomenal experience in meditation, I don't think anybody would meditate. He said meditation transforms us, but we have to have a reason to keep meditating. So meditation does transform us, It just gives us experience, but we need to have a reason why we need to continue the meditation. And we remember that you said the aim for the meditation and the goal keeps changing as we evolve. It's a dynamic journey. So most of the people think that it's a very static process. Most of the people meditate only for the sake of peace. And once they feel that they are peaceful than before, they stop meditation because they have not grasped the dynamic aspect of the meditation. So please remember, meditation is a dynamic process and our spiritual journey is a dynamic journey. Every condition that we feel at every chakra is a dynamic condition. It is not a static condition. So I keep giving this very simple example. You feel acceptance at the first point. So the first point is cheerful acceptance. In the second point, the same acceptance now becomes peaceful acceptance. In the third point, it becomes a loving acceptance. In the fourth point, it becomes a courageous acceptance. In the fifth point, it becomes a acceptance backed by clarity. In the sixth point, the same acceptance is now backed by selflessness. In the seventh point, it is backed by energy, subtle energy, from where we actually draw from the Parabrahmanda. In the eighth point, it is backed by Paravairagya. In the ninth point, the same acceptance is now backed by the entry into the divine kingdom. And the 10th point, the same acceptance is now backed by our stabilization in the divine kingdom. So can you see, acceptance is one. However, the quality backing the acceptance as we progress in meditation will be different. So people might say, I just feel now more accepting of people. Now that is not enough. If you want to really describe your condition, you should be able to say, now the acceptance is backed by what quality? Now, this quality keeps changing till we reach the 12th point. In the 12th point, all the qualities merge into one essence. And that is why the condition in the 12th point is very plain and simple. At the 12th point, we don't say that this person has acceptance because of this particular quality or backed by this quality. This person is acceptance personified. That is all we can say. At the 12th point, every quality, we become personified of that particular quality. So that at the 12th point, the person is love personified, humility personified, peace personified, purity personified. All these things, we become a personification of all the qualities put together. Now, all the qualities lose their separate differentiation or identity. Now we become in tune to one identity, which is the identity of the divine. And this is what we call as Sarupyata. At the 12th point, we become Sarupya with God. Now, God does not have all these qualities separately, but He has all these qualities embedded within Himself, within itself. Now, this divinity at the center has all these qualities embedded in it. So, each person experiences the divinity at different points as different qualities. That is all it is. So, all the qualities that we are experiencing at different chakras are nothing but the qualities of the divine, which is all inclusive at different points in different qualities. That's all. So, how do we know that we are actually progressing towards the center? We actually experience the conditions. Now, the quality which are backing the conditions go on changing. Eventually, we reach a uniform condition. So, to say, at the 12th point, we become plain and simple. Once we achieve that, we have become sarupya or identical with the original condition of the center or the ultimate. Then our journey towards the center happens after we enter into the central region. Until unless we become identical with the divine or the ultimate, we cannot gain entry into the central region. So please keep this in mind. Now, the same thing happens to every other quality or every other condition that you develop at different points. The quality backing the condition at different points goes on changing as we progress higher and higher. So we keep talking about this third point. Suppose love starts manifesting at the third point. Love initially will have more selfish things to it than selflessness. Now, as we progress towards the sixth point, where the love acquires selflessness as a big quality, before that we pass to fourth stage, where we need to have the courage to love others selflessly. Although we are not stabilized in selflessness, however, now we are gradually leaving the quality of selfishness in love. but we have not stabilized in selflessness. So, in order to move out of this zone of comfort of selfish love, we have to have courage. That is where the fourth point helps us. Now, in the fifth point, the same love becomes backed by courage and now becomes backed by clarity. The clarity will clearly help us differentiate the subtler aspects of selfishness versus selflessness. And then once love becomes backed by the courage and quality, you can truly establish yourself in the quality of love with selflessness, backed by selflessness. Can you see how we actually evolve? Backed by the conditions becomes backed by different qualities as we evolve higher and higher in spirituality. So many people might actually talk about the same condition. However, the difference is the condition is now backed by a different quality. This is one of the things that we have to develop sensitivity to observe. Who do we call as a person very sensitive? A sensitive person is one not only who picks up the condition, but also talks about the quality which is backing the condition. That person is a very sensitive person. Okay, so meditation transforms us, but we have to have a reason to keep meditating. But I think our experience do more than encourage us to keep going. They also teach us something. Yes, but does not mean that we will learn from them. Darji retorted. But through meditation, we do change. You see, meditative practice works at a deeper levels of our being. So what does meditation do? It changes us as a being. Knowledge and experience only work at the conscious level. This is not enough. Our thoughts, attitude, emotions, and habits have roots in the infinite vastness of the subconscious. What's more, our subliminal thoughts are more powerful than the thoughts we consciously entertain. This is one of the reasons that we fail when restricting our efforts to change at the conscious level. We can change our habits, we can change deliberate actions, but how do we change the subconscious action? When we can barely even become aware of something, can we change it? This is one of the biggest hurdle when we try to change, affect any meaningful change in our lives. A true change agent cannot work at the superficial level alone, but must be effective at all levels of our being. It must be holistic. Now, he's giving you another aspect. We become inclusive and we also become more and more holistic. This is what happens to us as we progress in meditation. So I will allow you people to kind of gradually ponder on what is the difference between inclusiveness and holistic. Does not holistic mean inclusive? Just ponder over this particular point. The difference between inclusiveness versus holistic. A sound meditative practice fills that gap in our efforts. In other words, we change for the better on a longer term basis, not at a superficial level, but at the core of our being. It works at the deeper levels, activating the dormant evolutionary forces within and propelling us to an evolutionary path. Then changes happen on its own. Often it happens in spite of us. We do not know why we feel so happy. We do not know why we feel so light. Our family, friends, and colleagues take notice. In fact, we now become a transformational presence in their lives as well. We breathe love, we walk love, we talk and live love. So, love is one aspect that we might exhibit, but there are many other conditions or qualities that we exhibit. You see, we are talking about how knowledge and experience both fail us. However, with the added practical element of meditation, they become both extremely useful. So, knowledge without meditation is not no use. Belief without experience, meditation is of no use. Experience without meditation is of no use. So, when meditation backs all these three, it's of utmost utility to us. Because the knowledge we gain through meditation comes first hand. Yes, Daji retorted. Of course, Daji said, meditation also converts second-hand knowledge into something useful. When reading spiritual literature, for example, we find that it resonates with our experience. It also clarifies our experience. Then it can pull us to higher levels of understanding. So when we have experience in meditation, we actually go to higher levels of understanding. Now, for that, you need to do self-reflection. Without doing self-reflection, we will not be able to utilize the experience for the next stage level of understanding. With practice, that's why I keep saying the word peace. Practice with awareness to gain experience and sensitivity. And that is what makes us progress in meditation. Practice with awareness to experience, to gain experience and sensitivity. Now, what are you going to practice? You are going to practice meditation with awareness to gain experience and sensitivity, backed by experience and sensitivity. When we do this peace practice of meditation, then we can make the second knowledge, the first knowledge, backed by experience. With practice, we also start to learn from our experiences. Previously, we unconsciously resisted change and our experiences went to waste. But over time, meditative practice wipes that inner resistance away. Like a horse that runs at the shadow of a whip, all we need now is the mere hint of an experience. That's enough to trigger an inner change. We become like an object in outer space where you only need to give it a tap and it keeps going on and on. There is no resistance, you see. Our experience have now the same effect. They only need to tap you and you become ennobled. What are our experiences really trying to tell us? Experiences reflect our true nature, inner nature. For example, when I am angry, I have a negative experience. That anger prevents me from having the kind of experience that I would prefer to have. When I'm jealous, there is another negative experience. But when I'm loving and generous, it's a beautiful experience. And the sensitivity of that beauty depends upon the extent of my love and generosity. So we all want to move from a negative experience towards something more positive or a good experience. So many times people say after meditation, we felt nice in meditation. In other words, they're talking about a positive experience or a happy or a nice experience. But that is not enough. People say, I felt nice during the meditation. But we need to gradually move deeper into that. So they show you which direction to move in. Yes, Daji said. There are indications. When I am like this, my experience will be like this. When I am like that, my experience will be like this. So due to certain meditative practices, I'm able to change as a result of this particular understanding. So meditation actually gives you an ability to change the inner experience by changing what is it that you are experiencing with. So really, the role of the experience hasn't changed much from what it was before we meditated. It's still like a green grass one shows to the donkey because its role is to encourage us to move in a certain direction. Yes, but now experience becomes more effective because you have removed the donkey's stubbornness. So meditation removes the inner resistance. Please remember. So in other words, the resistance to change is now removed if you practice meditation correctly. Now, if we practice meditation and if we are resisting the change, that means that the inner resistance is not gone and we are not able to make the spiritual progress. Our inner resistance, I said yes. And a time comes when there is no more donkey either. You see, I eventually realized that there is one single factor that affects all our experience, the way that I handle my ego. So it's not experience that actually makes us better. How do we handle the experience using the ego? That is what makes us better. So if we do not learn how do we handle the experience using our ego, then we are not going to change for the better. In other words, for example, if you go to meditation practice itself, it is not that we don't get the thoughts in meditation. We do get thoughts in meditation. However, what happens is we learn to handle the thoughts in the right way that we are supposed to handle. What do? We acknowledge the thought, but does not go behind it. That's what we learn in meditation. Likewise, if we can acknowledge the experience, but not go behind the experience, in that way, we would have made a drastic change in the way that we approach our life. So when I say not go behind the experience, you are now handling the experience in the right way without utilizing your ego. So we can elaborate on this difference. Going through the experience and not acknowledging the experience, but not going behind the experience. And that is a very critical thing. Okay. Now that is talking about the same way. How do we handle it? How do we handle my ego? Because it's the ego which handles the experience. So if I have to handle the experience correctly, I have to work with the ego. The higher my egoism, the worse my experience is. The more humble and insignificant I am, the better my experience is. It's a very simple formula. Then one day a light bulb goes on in my head. How would it be if I were to become a total zero? If I were to become nothing? So as and when the ego reduces in the intensity, we feel that our experience is better and better. So what if my experience, if I become zero or nothing, how will be my experience then? Zero means we have actually lost our ego. Meditation facilitates this too. Yes. Now, the only kind of the change that I find in myself pertains to whether there is more or less of me. Conversely, we can ask the question of whether there is more of God and less of God. You see, the more I am there, the less of God He is. The less I am of me there is, the more His presence manifests. It now becomes a question of being and non being. Ah, that's what you meant about the donkey disappearing. I said yes. The donkey is our own samskaras, our own personality. That is the donkey that is talking about, our own personality. So when I am dissolved in the ultimate source, it is absolute bliss. He continues. Rather, I become bliss itself. And when I become bliss, how can I experience it? It's like a raindrop that falls into the ocean. There is no more the drop. It has become the ocean, you see. So there's no question of the bliss being personified. You become bliss itself. In other words, at the 12th point, you can say you become personified. But at the center, you cannot say that you become personified because the person itself is not there. So that's the quality. That's the difference between the condition at the 12th point versus the center. That's why mystical traditions fall silent in the end. They cannot express the final state, which is so sublime and perfect and balanced. So when we reach the center, how are we? We are very sublime, we are perfect and balanced. So in fact, there are three things. There is perfect calmness, perfect balance, and perfect moderation. That is what happens when we reach the center. And it's a very sublime state. Wherever there is perfection, there is sublimity. And could a person who has attained this state ever be selfish? Could they be violent? The world faces many challenges. Some are political, others are social, some are economic, others are environmental. In all cases, humanity suffers. But the world problems are very simple. They are the lack of love between human beings, the lack of compassion, tolerance, humility, and acceptance. They are arrogance, hatred, and violence that have polluted human hearts. They are prejudices and intolerance. If a person has no peace in their heart, can there be peace around them? Such a person will always find reasons to argue and fight. Only whom a person's own heart is peaceful can their interactions be peaceful. So if the heart is peaceful, then the interactions can be peaceful. How to solve the problem of hatred? If there is is there any political solution? Can love and acceptance be legislated and enforced? Can any law change the human heart? The human heart changes when it decides to change, and that is the personal choice that every person may need to make for themselves. We cannot enforce it upon them. We can only inspire them and then offer them the tools. The two things. Change will come in our life only when we are ready for the change. Secondly, all that we can do is we can inspire the person for the change and give them the tools for the change. That is the role of a preceptor. A preceptor's role is to inspire other people for change and give them the tools necessary for change. That's all that our role is. Then gradually things will start unfolding itself, backed by the master's power or sankalpa. That's all our role. Very simple. We just need to inspire the people and give them the tools that is necessary. But remember, change will only occur when the person is ready for change. It cannot be imposed. That's why we say, no, don't use any force during meditation. So change has to happen naturally without the use of any force. If the change is brought about by use of force, it is always unnatural. Therefore, rather than trying to transform others, let us devote ourselves to our own transformation. As for others, let us be non-demanding of them. Let them be content. Let us be content to love them as they are and accept them as they are and be ever ready to serve them as we would the members of our own family. This is the humanity that the world sorely needs. Only love can make it possible to accept other person's flaws. Have you ever seen a mother give up on her children, even if the child constantly misbehaves, gets thrown out of the school or worse, the mother remains by her side, even after everyone else is fed up. This is due to the mother's love. Where there is love, there is acceptance. Where there is love, there is forgiveness. Where there is love, there is compassion. Love is the root of every noble quality. So from the first point up to the center, what is common is love. But the nature of the love keeps changing. Therefore, where there is love, do you need any other quality? When love is present, acceptance, forgiveness, compassion, all becomes redundant. Love alone is sufficient. No other quality is required. We all know this. The great teachers of the past and present have all said so. But if the teachings were enough, wouldn't we have transformed by now? Again, he comes back to the first point he made in the chapter, that the teachings, the knowledge of the teachings itself is insufficient. Okay, so we shall go to the next few pages, and then after that we can take the questions. We have the Kannada questions at 8, Kannada session at 8:30. So we might not be able to take all the questions. If some questions are remaining, we can take it tomorrow. So I'll just pause here for 1 or 2 minutes. If anybody wants to add anything, please go ahead. If anybody wants to make a question or comment, please go ahead. So we have another 2-3 minutes.
One quick clarification, brother. The way you explained how the acceptance changes at different levels, from simple to cheerful to loving to courageous to clarity, selflessness, backed by energy. Then what, brother? In 8 point, what is it?
Paravairagya.
Paravairagya. 9th point is surrender.
9th point is backed by surrender and insignificant. 10th point, the happy tidings of our entry into the divine kingdom.
That is a divinity.
The divinity. You have entered into the divine kingdom. And you start feeling more and more aligned to the divine kingdom in the 10th point. So that's how the quality keeps changing. Every condition that we get at any point will keep evolving. And that's our job, to develop the sensitivity to change, to look at and pick up the change that happens in the condition and the quality which is backing the condition. That's an aspect of sensitivity.
Okay,
That's
brother.
how we-
One at a time. Ratan, go ahead.
Brother, is there any chance that these qualities will be felt before reaching those points? Maybe insignificance or surrender.
See, you might get a glimpse of that particular condition, but the condition, once it is reached there, it actually unfolds through your personality. It changes you as a person. See, that's why many people confuse between having a particular quality. Suppose a person is simple and down to earth. Is that one quality enough to go to the highest state of spirituality? Not necessarily. Although having that nature of simplicity might be a good virtue to have. But that in insufficient, that one quality in itself is insufficient to take us to the highest. Okay? Now, the person might be simple and down to earth. But if the person does not change in spirituality, going through many different conditions, then he is not backed by the experience. So we all exhibit multiple qualities. So some of the good qualities, some of the bad qualities. Now, we have to eventually move away from the bad qualities that we have got. We have to stabilize in the good qualities, and then not only stabilize in the good qualities, that these qualities should gradually evolve into backing the conditions that we develop in meditation, to ultimately reach a state where the quality and the condition all merge into plainness and simplicity. That is the journey of spirituality. So no one quality or multiple qualities in itself is sufficient to take us to the highest or the center. We need to undergo many of these changes before we reach the condition of plain and simplicity. Okay, that is where our practical experience of going through the different stages of spirituality comes in. When we develop the practical experience of going through different conditions and the qualities backing it, we then become enabled to impart those conditions to the abhyasis who come to us for sittings. Okay? Without that experience ourselves, we will not be in a position to transmit those conditions to the abhyasis. And that's why we have to become an intense abhyasi. A perceptor is an intense abhyasi. That's why you had one module. A perceptor is an intense abhyasi. Why? If you do not practice intensely, you are unlikely to develop that sensitivity to pick up the conditions backed by different qualities. And then, without mastering over these conditions backed by different qualities, you will not be in a position to impart it to the individuals who come to you as abhyasis in practice. Okay.
Thank you.
So, shall we move on now? If any
Brother,
other- please, Raju, we'll take the question later on. Please keep that in mind. Just keep it with you. We'll take it later on. Because the point is, we have to finish at least about 20 pages every day. So otherwise, we will not finish by the 15th. So I'm just keeping the target in mind. But we will have a question and answer session. I think today we started a bit later, but we should be able to kind of catch up with other questions, not to worry. Okay. Demystifying meditation. The practice of meditation forms an integral part of many contemplative traditions. In other words, so please underline contemplative traditions. Meditation is always backed by contemplation. It is said to be the most effective way to approach divinity, transcending both ritual and belief. Rituals are the actions that we undertake at the physical level of existence, remaining at the physical level. Belief remains at the mental level. So, really, rituals are at the physical level, belief is at the mental level. To transcend both and arrive at the spiritual state of being, we must take the help of something that belongs to the higher spiritual level of existence. This is the approach we take in heartfulness meditation. To better understand it, I decided to start at the beginning. What is meditation? I asked Daji. He took out a pen and drew a diagram. The vertical axis represents a spectrum between focused mind and unfocused mind. The focused mind settles on one thought and remains there. It's single pointedness. Conversely, the unfocused mind wanders from topic to topic and it thinks many thoughts and its attention jumps here and there. Between these two extremes, there is a middle ground. Most of the mind's activity occurs there, in their middle ground. Here is another polite. So one is the unfocused versus focus. The other one is the effort versus effortlessness. That's the horizontal axis. The effortless mind is relaxed and at ease. On the other hand, there is the effortful mind which cannot be at ease. It struggles to think, to comprehend, and to concentrate. Different combinations of these two spectrums result in certain states of mind. Here we have daydreaming, frustration, concentration, and meditation. So let us understand the meditative mind. As you can see, it's a mixture of focus and effortlessness. It is to be immersed in one thought, but effortlessly so. So can it be any thought? I said, yes, Daji said. But in that case, everybody already meditates. I said, yes, that's what I'm saying, said Daji with a chuckle. There's no question of having to learn a new skill. We all know how to meditate. We do it every day. For example, a businessman meditates upon a business venture. As he drives his car, he meditates upon that. As he goes to sleep at night, he meditates upon that. Perhaps someone is in love with him. As she goes through her routine, she meditates upon him. As she brushes her teeth, she meditates upon him. She goes to the grocery store, she meditates upon him the whole time. Meanwhile, she passes a musical musician in the store. His mind is busy thinking of music. He also meditates. So there is even a term called premeditated murder, where the premeditated murders on how to perfectly execute his dark plans. If everybody meditates already, then what is so profound about meditation? I asked. What makes the meditation profound is the idea that we explore through meditation. The idea is the object of meditation. So what's the object that we have kept for meditation is what makes it profound. If we keep a finite object, meditation cannot be profound. If we keep an infinite object, the meditation becomes profound. Our object of meditation makes all the difference. A profound object gives us a profound consciousness. A mundane object gives us mundane consciousness. A temporary object makes us meditative mind of the state of mind temporary. A profound, changeless object makes our mind meditation permanent. Different objects create different effects upon us, you see. So what we are now talking about, a profound object which is changeless. That is what makes our meditation profound and permanent. How can we achieve a meditative state that is more permanent and profound? I asked. Effortless focus upon an infinite object or a profound object, Daji said. We must practice. Without the mother, there can be no baby. And without the practice of meditation, there is no meditative state. So, meditative state is got by doing the practice of meditation. I have found that new aspirants are often nervous about trying meditation. I said, they think that they will have trouble handling their thoughts. Many say that the mind's nature is to be restless. Daji said, they say that its natural state is one of disturbance. I disagree. In fact, I would like to dispel that notion. Now, this is a very common thing that you have experienced when abhyasis come to you. They think that they have been hammered this idea that the natural state of the mind is disturbance or restlessness. That's incorrect. Why is the idea of difficulty so entrenched? I asked him. Many established teachers have opposed their view, he said Daji. In my opinion, they perform a disservice to the cause. If you believe that the mind is to be inherently unstable, it becomes your enemy. Then what to do? What do you do with the enemies? You fight with them, and so meditation becomes a battle. It becomes an exercise in suppressing the mind. But have your thoughts and emotions ever prevented you from enjoying a good film? No, I said. Have you ever stopped you from enjoying a delicious meal? No, again. Why not? He pressed. A film draws your attention. A good meal draws your attention. Then you don't notice such things. Exactly, Daji said. When something draws your attention and holds it there, you become unmindful of the unwanted thoughts. Please underline this. So, in meditation, something should draw our attention. What is it that draws our attention? It is the divinity. But the divinity unfolds in different ways. So, that is what we should be aware of during the meditation. What is it that is drawing our attention? So, during meditation, we start bringing our attention to the first point. But something else at a different point draws our attention. We should naturally move to that particular level. Whatever is drawing our attention, not the thoughts, we should not go behind the thoughts. What is drawing our attention in meditation through awareness at different points, that is where we have to move with interest. So when something draws your attention and holds it there, we become unmindful of unwanted thoughts. You only need to give your mind something to sink its teeth into, something really absorbing. Then you will observe that it just how naturally stabilizes and how effortlessly it focuses. However, we do not seem to have much control over this. Some objects attract the minds and some simply do not. For example, if your child has been deeply absorbed in his studies all day and night, you might feel happy. He is engaged in a positive activity. But if you realize that he has been playing video games for 9 hours straight, you might start to worry. In both cases, your child exhibits an enormous capacity to focus, but your concern is on the object upon which he is focused. You are concerned about where his interest lies. So attention and interest go together. Wherever our interest is, our attention automatically goes in that particular direction. You see, we do not suffer from an inability to focus. We focus effortlessly upon our interests. But can we choose our interests? It seems that certain objects simply appeal to us and more than others. The reason is the impressions that we carry in our consciousness, but we will explore this topic other time. Anyway, when something appeals to us, you become almost enraptured. You are totally focused. It is only when an object does not interest you that you have to make efforts to concentrate. This is another thing. We should gradually make, as a preceptor, the abhyasis become more and more interested in meditation. That's a job. We should make the abhyasi more and more inspired. Not only that, we should make them more and more interested in meditation. That's the job of the preceptor. So when they become interested in meditation, they will start focusing on the experience of the meditation easily. And not when they focus on the meditative experience easily, they develop the ability to absorb the experience of meditation, and then they develop sensitivity. Without developing that interest in meditation for them, their ability to absorb the condition becomes difficult, and their ability to talk about the condition becomes very difficult. That's when we say the person is not as sensitive. For instance, when you read a book on a subject that does not speak to your heart, your mind wanders every second, right? Eventually, you realize that you have no idea what you have just read. You scan back in the next until things start to look familiar. To finish the book, you really have to concentrate. So one of the ways that we do is when we are not finding it easy to read through the book, we have to first become familiar with the book, and then we actually concentrate on the book to pick up the things in the book. But if we have real interest in the topic of the book, we become enraptured by what is there in the book. Interest succeeds where force does not. Please underline this line. So when we make a person interested in meditation, they succeed in meditation. But if you bring a person to meditation by force, it is not going to succeed. Right, said Daji. If you have keen in a particular project, you will certainly succeed. If you are not interested, you struggle. Without interest, any activity becomes a drag. Unless your mind finds an idea attractive, it is averse to stay on that topic. It would rather focus on something else. Concentration and focus are not the same thing. Are they? I remarked. True focus is effortless, he implied. He replies, it happens naturally. It is only when it does not happen on its own that we have to make efforts. That is what concentration is, attempt to focus. So true focus is effortless. Concentration is effortful focus. We define meditation as thinking about one thing continuously. Therefore, many people mistake it for concentration. But meditation is not concentration. Concentration is forceful, meditation is effortless, involving no force at all. That's why when we say meditation, how to do meditation, we keep saying three things not to do, not to be done. Don't go behind the thoughts, don't, or thoughts or emotions, don't imagine anything, don't use any force in meditation. If people are not taught these three things not to be done in meditation, they struggle in meditation for a long period of time, for many years. So again, I emphasize three things not to be done in meditation. One, don't go behind thought or emotion. Don't go concentrate or don't imagine. Thirdly, don't use any force or don't try to concentrate in meditation. In concentration, you have to marshal your mind. You focus on a single idea to the exclusion of other things. So other thing now. In concentration, there are two things. You're focusing on one thing, on an object. You are also actively excluding other objects. That is concentration. So you focus on a single idea to the exclusion of all other ideas that you prefer to be thinking about. The more deeply you concentrate, the more exclusive your awareness becomes. At the highest pitch, your entire awareness becomes focused on a single thought, excluding all others. This requires effort. It is not easy to arrest the flow of the thoughts. The mind has a natural momentum. It wants to go in a certain direction, but you are enforcing it to go elsewhere. It is like trying to divert a rushing river. Even if you manage to wrestle your mind into submission, then you then have to hold it there. The moment you relax your efforts, it bounces back like a tightly coiled spring. How long can you maintain such intensity of effort? Even though some people equate meditation with concentration, they also say meditation should be relaxing. They say that it should give you peace. Can meditation be relaxing and able to be peaceful when you are applying so much effort to concentrate? So let us forget about concentration. For worldly matters, it may be necessary, but it fails entirely in the spiritual realm. So that's why Babaji writes in Complete Works that concentration is the natural result of meditation. For meditation, you don't require concentration, but concentration is the natural result of rightful meditation. But we define meditation as a state of focus, I reminded. Effortless focus, Adaji corrected. In such a state, your mind naturally settles on one thought. This happens by itself. When an object is so abstract and hold your attention, when your attention is thus harnessed, you are in a state known as absorption. This is another word for meditative state of mind. So when a person becomes more and more absorbed in meditation, we say that the mind is now becoming more meditative in nature. So we talk about absorption in meditation, not concentration in meditation. Concentration is effortful focus. Absorption is effortless focus. Naturally, we become absorbed in meditation. However, attraction is double-edged. It's another word for desire. You see, what is desire really? Desire is the soul's misdirected urge for completion. So please underline this. This is another question that they'll ask. What is desire? Now, Daji defines desire in a different way here versus definition of the desire in spiritual anatomy. Desire is a soul's misdirected urge for completion. The soul craves union with the original source. That is the real desire or the big desire. Until we know where to look, we tend to seek fulfillment externally instead. So the soul's desire can only be fulfilled by looking inwards. But when we look to fulfill that desire by looking outwards, we always fail. So I think I'll stop it here. From tomorrow, we can continue from there. Okay. So I'll take some questions now. We have another 5 minutes. We'll take 1 or 2 questions. Raju, go ahead. Raju, brother?
Yes, brother. Brother, you told no person is there at center available at 12th point.
I didn't get your question.
No, while you are telling, no person will not be there at center available.
I never said that.
No, something like that you told.
You did
But
not get the point.
no, what
You
is the
said-
condition of a person at 12th point actually? Then I will know. Understand.
Condition at the 12th point is plain and simplicity. Plainness and simplicity, purity, humility, and love personified. The person does not love anybody, but they are love personified. The person does not like to be humble or strive to be humble, they are humility personified. A person does not strive to be pure, they are purity personified. These are the conditions at the 12th point. I have given you 5 conditions.
Okay.
But at the center, the condition is totally different. At the center, the condition is of a state of complete unawareness, in the state of complete ignorance.
Okay, brother. Now understood. Understood.
Okay.
That's all.
Datesh, brother, go ahead. Datesh,
Yeah, brother. This is about the question that I had posted you.
you can go
Basically,
ahead with the question. There is no need
Yeah.
to give the background.
okay. Try to make this is with respect to LPOC. Try to make ourselves such that same color enters each and every part of the body. What do we mean by this?
See, LPOs is something that is quite likely to come in your exam. So let us not discuss about LPOC without going through the entire context. The LPOC message that Lalaji has given needs to be understood in the full context of what he's been talking about. So in the context of communication. So when we come to that LPOC, we will cover that LPOC as a topic after we have finished the heartfulness way. When we come there, we'll talk about it. Without
Sure.
understanding the right context of the message of LPOC, if you look at the color as a word, it will mean different things to different people.
Correct. Yeah, fine, brother.
Okay. So let us understand it in the context of what Lalaji is trying to convey. Otherwise, at different levels of our evolution, we will probably take different meanings out of the word color that is used there. Okay.
Yeah. Fine, brother. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, coming up to 2027. Any other question? In fact, Heartfulness Way is such a beautiful book. If we actually understand the Heartfulness Way in the correct perspective, it should actually fine-tune our practices, the way that we practice. In fact, Daji has written the Heartfulness Way, it kind of simplifying what we have actually got through the complete works. So, Heartfulness Way in alignment with the life principles, where Daji has explained about the 10 maxims. You remember the collector's edition that came in December last year. I think these two are combined together is a one compact thing in itself. So that will be probably sufficient for our entire journey. So the Heartfulness Way, the spiritual anatomy, and the life principle that Daji has given as an explanation for the 10 maxims. So this trinity of these 3 books, keep it in mind. Okay, spiritual anatomy, Heartfulness Way, and the book on life principles, explanation of the 10 maxims. Yogita, go ahead.
Brother, each sentence has so much nuggets to take from the book. How do we remember everything for the exam?
That is why they have made it an open book. You don't need to remember everything from the book. You can actually look at the book and write the answer. Okay, so not to worry about it.
But still to find, because each sentence has so much, so still to find in the open book, it's kind of tricky, I feel, brother.
That is where your sequence should be there in the mind. So where is he talking about more in depth of the meditation? Where is he talking about how to handle thoughts in meditation? Where is he talking about the goal of meditation? All these things you need to at least know where what is. That's all. They don't expect you to remember everything, but they should at least they expect you to remember where what is so that you can write, and that is what you have to practice. You don't need to practice everything. You just need to practice things in such a way that you know where what is.
Okay, brother. Thank you.
Okay, pa. So thank you very much for joining in. We will